Praise the Lord. We've already had our prayer, and we're going to begin our Sunday school lesson for today, March the 2nd, 2025. And this actually begins a new quarter, that is the spring quarter. And first of all, we're going to be in the Old Testament. And the subject of our lesson this morning is a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. And it's taken from Exodus, the 19th chapter, verses 1 through 14. That is Exodus, the 19th chapter, verses 1 through 14. Now, Moses is the author of Exodus. Now, Exodus is broken up into 5 sections. Chapters 1 through 4 of Exodus talks about Israel's oppression in Egypt. Chapters 1 through 4. Israel's oppression in Egypt. Chapters 5 through 15 talks about the confrontation with Pharaoh and the plagues, and you know about that. That's chapters 5 through 15. And chapters 19 through 31 talks about the covenant relationship at Sinai. And that's why our lesson is taken from chapter 19. And chapters 30 through 40 talks about the reward and the tabernacle construction. Okay, so let's look at our lesson. We have 3 outlines in our lesson. Coming to Sinai, that's verses 3 through 6 of this 19th chapter. And the second outline is God shall come. And that's verses 7. The second outline is God's chosen people. And that's Exodus 3 through 9. And the third outline is God shall come. That's verses 7 through 14. Now, first of all, let me tell you something. As I said, we started in the Old Testament. And a lot of people put focus on the New Testament, like Christians, saints. And I'll tell you this, the key to understanding the New Testament is to understand the Old Testament. Because God said, God changes not. He was the same yesterday, today, and forever. So it's not God's going to change. God is the same. Okay, so let's look at our first outline. And this is the 19th chapter of Exodus, verses 1 and 2. Verses 1 and 2. And it says, coming to Sinai. Okay, so as a result of the miracles that God did for them in Egypt, as I said, the plagues, and the final plague, and the Pharaoh decided to let the people go. And we know the story, and there was a change of heart and all that. But those were miracles that God performed. Now, they cried out to God, and God finally sent rescue. Chose Moses, and Moses went down and pleaded with Pharaoh. And I mean, the miracle was God's miracle, okay? Now, so let's look at the first outline. It says, coming to Sinai. And read verses 1 and 2. That's the first outline. Verses 1 and 2 of the 19th chapter of Exodus. Okay, you have it? Okay. Verses 1 and 2. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone out of the land of Egypt, the same day came into the wilderness of Sinai. The departed from Rephidim and will come to the desert of Sinai and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. Now, so it was 3 months after the miracles that God performed, and the Pharaoh finally let the children of Israel go. So 3 months after they came to Sinai, Mount Sinai. Now, incidentally, this is the same place that Moses saw the burning bush. This is the same place. Okay, so they came to Sinai 3 months. They was at Sinai. Now, you might say, oh, they was in the promised land. No. Okay. You remember they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Now, from this point, so 3 months out of Egyptian bondage, now they're at Sinai. Now, and this is important because this is where, as I said, the Lord met Moses, the burning bush, and this is where the Lord met Moses and gave Moses the law, the 10 Commandments plus other laws. Not just the 10 Commandments, but plus other laws. Okay, so they're at the Mount of Sinai, and so this is basically where they are, and they receive the law, the covenant, and we're going to talk about the response of the people. So that's where they were, and God gave to Moses the commandments, the law. Okay, let's go to the second outline. That's the point of the first outline is 3 months. They at Sinai. They're at Sinai. Not in the promised land again. Not in the promised land yet. But they're at Sinai and they received the law and the covenant was given. Okay, let's go to the second outline. God's chosen people.
And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel.
Yeah, go ahead and read 4.
Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you up on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself.
Okay, hold up there. Okay, so God's chosen people. Now, God called Moses up to the mountain, and he said, this is what I want you to tell the people. This is what I want you to tell them. Okay, the house of Jacob, now we know, was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's name was changed from Jacob to Israel. That's what we're talking about, the children of Israel. Okay, so tell the children of Israel. That's the last clause in verse 3. The children of Israel. He said, tell them this. This is what you tell them. Okay, the miracles. You have seen it. Like, as I said, it's only 3 months out of bondage. They saw it. Now, as you know, a lot of the people, the older people wasn't dead yet. A lot of them died when they wandered in the wilderness. But they seen it. It's not, well, we didn't see this. Yes, you saw this. How God, I bear you up on eagle's wing. I brought you unto myself. Remind them this. This is what you tell them. What I did. Okay. Now, he did this because of his love and his mercy and, okay, the promise he made to Abraham. Basically, I'm going to honor the promise I made to Abraham. Now, and we're going to talk about, I think it's in this outline, the types of covenants. Now, there are 2 types of covenants generally. There is a unconditional and conditional covenant, or is referred to as a unilateral and a bilateral. Okay? And the covenant that we're going to be talking about today that he made to Israel is a conditional covenant. Now, the covenant he made to Abraham was an unconditional covenant. Your seed, now in Genesis, your seed, not seeds. Seeds is plural. Seed is singular. When he said the whole nation, your seed will be blessed, will bless the whole nation, he didn't say your seeds, your seed, referring to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is, and you go to Matthew, it talks about it. It goes down the genealogy. He came down 42 generations. 42 generations from Abraham. So we're talking about honoring the promise that God made to Abraham. Now, Israel had a role, and we know for the most part, they wasn't perfect in their will. Now, we talked about another man called John the Baptist. And John the Baptist was on it. Jesus said there's no man born greater than John the Baptist but him. So John the Baptist carried out his role perfectly. Now, Israel was to point people to God. But Israel wasn't to die for them. This whole thing was pointing to the Messiah, which is Jesus Christ. As I said, 42 generations, and you read that in Matthew, I believe the first chapter. It talks about the 42 generations. It's 14, 14, 14. That's how he breaks it down, 42 generations, pointing to the Messiah. That's the seed, not seeds. That's the seed that was referred to. Okay, by the whole nation will be blessed by your seed. That is the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Okay, so we read verses 3 and 4. And this is what the Lord is telling Moses. Tell the people what I did for them. Remind them that. Remind them. Okay, so the Lord is instructing him to tell them this. Now let's look at the second heading, which is treasure, and that's verse 5. That is 5. Okay, now here is the covenant, and it's a conditional covenant. Now let me tell you how to identify a conditional covenant. Is if then. Let's look at it. Therefore, if. Then we get to the next clause, then. That's how you identify a conditional covenant. If you do this, then I will do that. If you don't do this, I don't have an obligation to do that. If I walk into a dealership and say, well, I will give you $50,000 for this car, and they agree, there's agreement. If I give them the 50, then their obligation is to give me the car. If I don't give them the 50,000, they don't have an obligation to give me the car. That's a conditional. When you go to a store and buy a product, you're making a covenant. You give them the money, they give you the product. Okay, so that's how you identify a conditional covenant. If you do this, and they said, if you obey my voice, I'm talking about total commitment. If you don't obey my voice, then you don't have anything coming. It's just like you might say, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't obey Christian principles. You're not a Christian. If you're a member of an organization that you have to pay dues, and and you don't pay your dues, they don't recognize your membership. In my condominium association, the members, they call them co-members, had to vote whether we're going to put on new roofs. Now, I couldn't get a roof on my condo without the other people agreeing because they all attached. Okay, so, and secondly, if your membership, as far as your association dues, was not current, you could not vote. They had the membership list there. Now, you may be late for that month, but because there's a grace period. But if you was 2 months behind, even if you did vote, they looked at it and said, his vote don't even count. So you can't be a member of something and don't obey the rules. Well, I'm a Christian, but I follow my own rules. How can you be, you can't be in any organization in good standing and follow your own rules. If you don't follow the rules, you're going to get kicked out. So it says here, okay, if you obey my, if you avoid my voice and keep my covenant, then you're going to be a particular treasure. If you don't, you're not. Simple as that. Simple as that. So this was a conditional covenant, not like the covenant he made with Abraham. Not like the covenant he made with Abraham. Covenant made with Abraham, and we got the Abrahamic covenant and the Noahic covenant, the covenant he made with Noah. That was a conditional covenant too. And we know Adam. I said Adam. The covenant he made with Adam was a conditional covenant, and Adam broke it. That's why he got kicked out of the garden. He broke the covenant. He broke the covenant. So that was a conditional covenant. Okay, so this is the covenant. Is an agreement between God and man here. Okay, and it was for complete devotion. That was their obligation. If that was complete devotion, then it'd be a particular treasure. If not, no go. Okay, verse 6, and that's dealing with holy. Talk about, go ahead. Okay, so this is what you tell them. You shall be a king. Now their job, as I said, was to point people to God. That was their job. That was their role in this. They were not to die for our sins. They were not to die for our sins. We know that. They couldn't find anybody. So it was point to God, point others to Christ. Okay, so that was a conditional covenant, and that covenant called for complete devotion, total obedience. Okay, now verses 7 starts the third outline, and just read. Let's see, 7 and 8. 7 and 8, the people agree. 7 and 8, verses 7 and 8. Okay, hold this 7, and we're going to take 7 and 8, but I just want to make a point here in verse 7. Moses called for the elders. Now Moses had appointed elders. There were thousands of people. So Moses couldn't get around to speaking face to face with all of them. So he had appointed elders. Okay? So Moses called the elders. They represented groups of people. Okay, that's what the elders represent. That's what their role. Okay, and lay before their faces all the words of the Lord that the Lord commanded them. Okay, so God spoke to Moses. Moses spoke to the elders spoke to the people. Okay, we're talking about the agreement. Okay, so we got that. Now read verse 9. Okay, now another thing about a contract. You have two people or more. Two people or more. Or let's just deal with two. Okay, one person makes an offer, but there has to be an acceptance before we have a deal. If I go to the dealership and say, I'll give you $50,000 for this car, it may be worth more than 50. He said, no deal. No deal. So we have an offer and we have to have an acceptance before we have a binding deal. Okay? So the people agreed. Let's look at it again. Okay. The people agreed. Okay, well, yeah. Verse 8. The people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. We have an acceptance. We have a binding agreement here. That's why we do it in our society today. Now, we have a thing, we don't do business on a handshake anymore. Now, back, I don't know, I think it was before my time, and people used to do business on a handshake. And we do it now for formalities. You know, you get a deal, you shake your hand. But there's always a written thing, though. There's a written document. But it's the okay, I think somebody said the door. Okay, they had an agreement there because they said all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And we know they broke that because it wasn't long after they had this golden calf and all that stuff. But they initially accepted they accepted it. They said we will do it. Okay, and that's what Moses returned to the words of the people unto the Lord. Okay, verses 9 is talking about the divine presence anticipated. Now, this part here is, this outline is, God shall come. Basically, he said, I'm going to come and meet with the people. Okay, let's read 9. Divine presence anticipated. That's verse 9.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord.
Okay, now the Lord appeared in a cloud. Now they heard his voice, but they saw Moses. They saw Moses, and that was so they would believe in Moses. So I'm going to come and appear to them. So he's getting them ready, and in verse 10 and 11, Moses gives instructions. The Lord gives instructions. And verse 10 and 11. Okay, so he said, prepare yourself. Now, as I said, the key to understanding the New Testament is to understand the Old Testament. Now, what he said, get your mind and your heart ready. Now we have, between our services, we have a break. And we may go downstairs, we drink coffee, we talk. We might even talk about what happened on the sports. And then we come back to service and we start our worship service. And sometimes the speaker will say, bring your minds in. It's just like the Lord told, it was the guy, no, not Noah, but not Moses. Okay, when he wanted to have a presence with God, and he told him to gird up the loins of your mind. Job, when he saw Job, he said Job wanted a presence with God. He said, gird up the loins of your mind. So, in other words, get your mind and your heart right before you meet the Lord. As I said, the key to understanding the new is old. Before you go before the Lord, you need to get your mind and your heart prepared. And this is what he's telling the people. Get your mind and the heart ready. Sanctify the people. Now, we have a service sometime. They call it concentration service. And what they will say, well, I want you to refrain from a lot of secular programs to concentrate on the Lord. Okay, so what he's telling the people, what the Lord is saying, get your mind ready. You're going to meet me. He said, and they sanctify the people. Now, sanctification here, and we're going to read it, he told Moses to sanctify the people. Now, washing of clothes, the washing represents the sanctification. And that's going to be, it says, let them wash their clothes. That represents a sanctification. Sanctified. So you don't just appear before God anyway. Now, and you probably, if you watch people testify before Congress, United States Congress, on C-SPAN or something like that, they don't go in there and torn up blue jeans and a T-shirt. These people are dressed up. Even when we go to our courts, you don't go in there with your hat on. You stand up and you give respect to the judge, even if you don't like the judge. You got to stand, take your hat off, and straighten yourself out. So you don't go before important people in our society without straightening up yourself. So you just don't go to God anyway. Lord said, well, I'm going to meet with the people tomorrow. Just come anyway. You know, we tell people, just come as you are. No. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He ain't for no mess, and we're going to see. He tell them to sanctify the people. Before I meet with them, I want you to sanctify the people. Sanctify the people. Wash their clothes and be ready on the third day. Get your mind and your heart ready to meet God. Okay, verse 12.
And thou shalt set bounds upon the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death.
Okay. Moses was to set boundaries around the mount. Okay, and say that ye go not up to the mount or the borders, you can't or touch it. Whosoever touches shall surely be put to death. Now, this is serious stuff. We're not playing around here. God is serious. I hear people say, well, if you want something to play with, go to Toys R Us. I don't know if they're still in business, and get you a toy, because God is nothing to play with. And this is what he's telling them. He said, all, sanctify the people. Before I meet with them, sanctify the people. Wash them. So we pull from that. You just don't go any kind of way to meet God. Go ahead.
I know you remember the Shabbat.
Right, right.
And one of the things I remember him preaching one time, and he said, you can't serve God with slop on your feet and field on your hands.
Right.
And in line with what this lesson is saying, when you come into the presence of God,
Right.
you need to get that stuff right. Just like even if we come to pray, if we feel like someone has an ought against us,
Exactly.
get that correct so
Right.
God can forgive us as we forgive others. It's just
Right.
you do stuff in decency and in the
Right, right. As I say, God is the same. God don't change. Well, I did this in the Old Testament. I'm going to do this different in the New Testament. God don't change. He don't change. So I want you to set boundaries. If anybody touch the mount, they going to be surely put to death. And verse 13 tells us how.
There shall not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man. It shall not live. When the trumpet sounded long, they shall come up to the mountain.
Okay, a couple of things here. Okay, they can't even touch it. They're either going to be stoned or shot, probably with an arrow or something. It says shot through. Whether man or beast. We're not playing. And you know the story about they was moving the Ark of the Covenant incorrectly. They were doing two things. First, they was moving it on the wrong cart. That was one thing. And the thing was the man thought it was about to fall. He went up and touched it. And he died. We ain't playing with this stuff. God ain't playing. So, I don't care who it is, man or beast, if you touch the mountain, you're going to die. And secondly, when the trump sound long, secondly, you don't even go up to the mountain before the trumpet sound. I'm just going to go out here and check it out. The trumpet ain't sound, but I'm just going to go up and check it out. You're going to die. He said, and when the trumpet sound long, so do you go up before the trumpet sound? You're going to be dead. That's what it says. So don't even think about going up to the mountain to check it out. God these are the instructions, and they're serious. They were serious then, they're serious now. That's the point of the old and new. God said, well, I'm gonna relax the rules. Now we hear that. We're gonna relax the rules. God ain't relaxing no rules. God's the same today, yesterday, and forever. Okay, so you don't even go up to the mountain before the trumpet sound. Now, I think the scripture is silent on how many people died, if anybody did. But that was what happened. God is serious about what he wants when you enter into the presence of God. And that's what the third outline is about. God shall come and meet with the people. And when he come to meet with the people, you need to be prepared. He told Moses to sanctify the people. And that's what he did. And it says, that's what verse 14 said. Moses went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified the people. And they washed their clothes. That's representing the sanctification. Now, whatever else they did, we don't know, but that represents the cleansing. And that tells us this is serious. You can't approach God any way. You have to approach him with humility and reverence. And the song said, come before the Lord, come before his presence with thanksgiving. So we can glean all of this from the instructions that God gave to Moses, and Moses related to the elders, and the elders to the people. And as I said, we had an agreement. The covenant here we're talking about that Moses presented to the people, and they all agreed. They all agreed. Again, they breached the covenant, but they initially agreed. And that's the key is in, like I said, with a Christian, you have to, in order to be in good standing, he told Abraham descendants, that is his natural descendants, they were talking about, we be Abraham's seed. Now, they were the natural seed, but Jesus was referring to the spiritual seed. Those that obey him are the spiritual seed. And so what, you the natural seed? He was talking about the spiritual seed. They said, you're not Abraham's seed. You know by Abraham's seed, as they used to say, a man in the moon. Oh, they were the natural seed, but they had it twisted. They was talking about, we be Abraham's seed. In other words, so what? So what? I'm a Rockefeller, so what? Do I have the Rockefeller money? I mean, so the point is this, is we be Abraham's seed. But they had it twisted. He was not referring to the natural seed. He was referring to the spiritual seed. You had
I was just saying, so the saints are Abraham's seed spiritually.
Exactly. I mean, so what are you, the natural seed? And that's what they were banking on. Oh, we be Abraham's seed. They said, you ain't no more Abraham's seed than a man in the moon, because you don't obey him. You don't obey him. And I'm not even talking about that anyway. I'm not talking about that. And that's what he referred to. You're not Abraham's seed. They don't obey his principle. How can you be a Christian or a member of any organization and don't obey the principles? I mean, you can claim to be, but they'll tell you, like I said in my association, if my dues wasn't up, wasn't current, I couldn't vote. If I voted, it didn't count. So, oh yeah, you can claim to be. So you have to follow spiritual principles in order to be a Christian. Okay? It says, and that's what it says in verse 5, okay, if you keep my commandments, then ye shall be a particular treasure. If then. If you do this, then. If you don't obey his voice, if then, you will not be one of his disciples. You have to follow the rules. And this is what he gave him. The law was the rules, the conditions of the covenant, the obligation. When you go and enter into a contract, there are conditions on both sides. The person, the offeror, the person that makes the offer has an obligation, and the person that accepts the offer has an obligation also. If the person does not, anybody that don't fulfill their end of the bargain, the other party is not obligated to perform. Offer to sell my car for $25,000, you accept the offer, but you don't give me the $25,000, I'm not obligated to give you the car. It's plain and simple. Once it's accepted, you have to perform. And there were people, and we almost done, there were people that promised to do something. I remember a case in the Bible that they promised. I promised to do X, Y, Z, but they didn't do it. Remember that example? They made a promise, but then there was some that did it. So the performance is what counts. You say, well, do we have an agreement? We have an agreement. But if I don't perform, you have to perform. You say, I'm a Christian, but where's it? And we talk about faith and work, and that's after. Now, the works is after you get it. You can't do any works to get in, but after you get in, that's residual effect. After you get in, you work out your soul salvation. Okay, so you have to produce works. He said, you say you have faith, but no works to show. Faith without works is dead. Faith, promising to do something and not doing it is no good. Well, yeah, I made a promise, but I didn't keep it. The other party said, well, no go, no deal. No deal. So this is the covenant was a conditional covenant that they made, and it was the laws that, including the Ten Commandments, you fulfill your end of the bargain, I will fulfill my end of the bargain. And as I said, this is Old Testament, but is relevant today, meaning that God is the same today, yesterday, and forever. He said, I change not. And if anybody have any comments, that's our lesson. A kingdom of priests, a holy nation. God is holy. God is holy. That's the bottom line. God is holy.
I'm so thankful for Jesus, because in Hebrews it talks about Jesus being the mediator
Mm-hmm.
of a better covenant,
Yeah.
or a better country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because where they failed, God prepared a way for us so we can
Right.
of a better covenant.
Right. That was, and as I said, the covenant that he made with Abraham, which was an unconditional covenant, it was fulfilled in Jesus Christ. The seed, not seeds, the seed were referring to Jesus Christ. And that's our Sunday school lesson today. Thank you.